AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Trojan family, what is going on? Welcome to the USC LAFB show. It's the night before USC Trojans traveling out to Lincoln, Nebraska to take on one of the historic programs out in the Midwest. And joining me to help preview this game, really excited to get into it, with Connor Happer. He's got a plethora of jobs, I would say. Host of the Happer Show on 620 The Zone, does Locked On Nebraska, does some Creighton basketball, does a little bit of everything. So Connor, I truly appreciate the time jumping on with me and talking some ball. How you doing?
Yeah, Ryan, I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's gonna be a fun one this weekend. Nebraska's pulling out a lot of the stops to make this a big game environment. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. We got the breaking news we'll get to first, but real quick, is that a Nikola Jokic poster behind you?
Yes, it is. I got a bunch of different stuff on the wall. The Jokic one is always the one that like makes the shot. I'm a Nuggets fan, so I thought that put that right next to my head, which is great.
I guess Nebraska, no professional basketball team, so Denver's kind of the closest. I said pre-recording, I'm from Denver, so big Nuggets, Avs fan, all that.
There's lots of in Nebraska. It's like a plethora of different sports teams that people are a fan of. It's a lot of Denver, Chicago, Kansas City. There's a lot of Chiefs fans, but they don't have an NBA team, so that's the one I globbed onto.
Makes sense. Well, we've had some recent success, which is nice. But
yeah,
one team you can all agree on, obviously, is the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and just extended your coach, Matt Rhule, 2-year extension, looking like locking him in from all these other schools trying to poach him away. Connor, would love to just get your thoughts. Was this a warranted extension? Are you happy about it? Do you think it's good for the program moving forward?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's just, you extend the coach because maybe you feel like there are suitors out there for the coach. They didn't add a whole bunch of money to his deal. They kept him at the same salary. They just extended it 2 years. There's going to be some stuff there that Rhule wants where most of it applies to NIL and their ability to acquire and retain players and stuff like that they're going to get money from people around here. So that's, you don't put that into the contract or anything. It's sort of like, hey, yeah, we're going to invest in the program. So yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the record is, I think, 18-15 at Nebraska. You'd look at that and say, man, is that really warranted? All I know is, Ryan, like, I would not want to be inside of the shark infested waters that is this year's coaching carousel. And Nebraska, found a way to avoid that while also making it friendly enough for themselves. They didn't bend over backwards here. It was clearly a mutual thing where he wanted to be here and Nebraska obviously wanted to see this thing through. So yeah, it's absolutely beneficial for both sides.
Yeah, it's it's kind of funny, we'll get to this actual game preview, but just looking at the parallels kind of at these programs, when obviously Rhule is a year less than Riley. Riley's in year 4, Rhule's in year 3, but kind of inherited very similar situations, right? Like historic blue blood programs that were really down bad. I mean, when Riley got here after the Clay Helton firing, the cupboards were bare. They needed a bunch of new facilities, and NIL was a mess and all that. It was just getting started. And Matt Rhule, very similar after the Scott Frost era, and really has had to kind of build from the ground up. So I think a lot of people are like, what, you just get blown out by Minnesota in 2 weeks and then you give this guy an extension. As you said, Connor, like, there's not a lot of better options out there. I think a lot of fans need to ask that, like, who's actually a better option than what we have? That's not saying there's not other good coaches, and there's probably some diamonds in the rough that have not been found yet, a la a Kurt Signetti from 2 years ago. But I don't think there's like 7 coaches just for the picking. So I guess what's your messaging kind of to, your listeners that like, hey, this is kind of what needed to be done. You kind of alluded to it, but in order just to keep the program trending in the right direction.
Well, he's established at the very least reestablished the foundation of the program, right? And I can't wait to see. I still don't think people know the answer to this question. Like, is he the guy to, get him back to winning conference championships and competing for national championships and playoffs and consistently and stuff like that? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows the answer to that question yet, but at the very least, they're not going 4-8 every year, which, it stacks up year after year after year. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you say, whoa, it's been 10 years since Nebraska's really been relevant in the grand scheme of college football. So that's what Matt Rhule has accomplished. I think that itself is worth, at least seeing it through. And that's what's happening here. There's still a lot of people around here who say, wow, this is what we're giving out extensions for these days. He hasn't really accomplished anything, but I do think the accomplishment of getting Nebraska back to respectability it was hard. And that is something that's clearly, I think, happened over the first 3 years for Rhule.
Yeah, you get to 8 wins, 2 more wins. You're at what, the most you've had in the last 6-7 seasons. So
since 2016, they won 9, and it's been sub 500 every year since, except for last year. So
there you go. So, building, sometimes it's a slow build. Not everyone gets the Indiana treatment like that. So, last parallel I'll say is, well, there's probably actually a few more, but USC right now is building this beautiful new facilities. I get to see it on campus every day when I'm there, and it's going to be completed by next spring. Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken, just opened new facilities, and I remember seeing a video, and it was like gorgeous what they built there. Have you been to the facilities? Have you seen it? Because when I think of USC, what they're doing right now, the school I think of that I compare it to is Nebraska's, because of the state of the art and just like the real, just how beautiful it is. What do you think of the facilities?
It's spectacular. I mean, they did it at the perfect time too. I mean, right as the, you're really getting into the revenue share era and all this different stuff. So that was a project that was sort of, the idea happened. It was announced when Scott Frost was still here, and the AD was Bill Moose at the time. And, they just completed it to open the season last year, but it's still kind of, was in the finishing stages. They're in it, full time now, but yeah, it's great. They've put so much money into it. They have a small practice field outside of that where they could do walkthroughs easily. The open window weight room, they've been really big on the nutrition side of things. Tons of chefs and stuff like that, recovery. Like it's really truly state of the art. And then, they've put money into grass practice fields that they felt like needed to be replaced and added to, and they're working on a large scale stadium upgrade as well. Nebraska's South Stadium, your fans will see it here if they're here this weekend. It's hopefully they're not sitting in the South Stadium, because it is basically original. The stadium was built over 100 years ago, and it is in dire need of basically just a tear down and rebuild. And so that is expected to start at the end of next season. It's been a long process to sort of put the money together and optic wise do it the sort of right way. But there is a lot of ways where you could point to and say they are really, really investing and going all in, whether, this is the guy or not. Nebraska, from a foundational standpoint, is going to be in a really solid place.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously more parallels, the Lincoln Memorial Coliseum, the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. USC just did some renovations, or it's actually owned by the city. So it's more kind of a city partnership with some renovations out here. I asked Lincoln Riley this morning, we had our Zoom call earlier, and he has obviously a past relationship with your offensive coordinator, Dana Holgorsen, and from his time at Texas Tech. And Holgorsen comes from that, Hal Mumme, Mike Leach kind of air raid tree, and joined the Nebraska staff last year as like an analyst, and then was pretty quickly promoted to offensive coordinator. I guess from your mind, how have you seen maybe his offense kind of adapt and adjust? Because it's not no one is running a true air raid really anymore these days, but there's obviously aspects and schematic elements to it. So just how have you seen his offense really adjust in this Big Ten and with this Nebraska personnel?
It's fascinating because I think it's a little bit of a sticking point almost. Dana, like you said, comes from that school of thought, and Rhule is a defensive guy, and he knows kind of what it takes to win in the Big Ten. So it's this interesting mix. And then on top of that, you have a quarterback who is certainly capable of throwing it all around the yard. But, I think the best thing for him at this point is to not have so much on his shoulders and have all that decision making. So they kind of vacillate at times, and they can really push down the gas pedal and being a tempo team and being a team that wants to get it to sideline a lot. But then I imagine what they'll try to do on Saturday is they'll play the role of the Big Ten West team, right? They will try to slow it down. They'll hand it off to their running back Emmett Johnson probably 25 times or more, and they'll try to play ball control with it. So I think from that perspective in this game, it is advantageous for Nebraska to have that option. But as far as what they actually want to be and that true identity, I don't know that it's there yet. I don't know that that really exists, and it's sort of like a combo, a multiple thing at this point. But his influence, Dana's influence has been great. Just to last year right away, his first game as the OC officially was the USC game last year, and he didn't know anybody's names and he was, but immediately you saw it, like it was just more crisp and seemed to be a little bit more simple for the quarterback to be able to process and wide receivers to be able to get open and stuff like that. So it happened fast. Their offense got way bogged down last year. You've seen it still at times this year, but Holgorsen is a huge asset, I think, for the program, as long as you get that mix right from with what the head coach wants to what the OC sort of wants to do.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like, so many people kind of talk about air raid like it's a stain almost. And in reality, no one really runs true air raid anymore. I mean, Lincoln Riley does not run an air raid offense. I tell people all the time, like, there are some aspects of the air raid, like, yeah, when they go 5 wide sometimes, but they're running a lot of 12 personnel this year. They're running a lot of 2 running back sets, or at least they were before both starting running backs got injured. So, it's such a different philosophy now in terms of offensive schematics. And you mentioned the running back, and obviously having a great season so far. And I can't remember his actual ranking, but up there in broken tackles. And so when we talked to USC this week, that was a big point of emphasis for them, is like, hey, we got to get this guy on the ground, at the point of attack, and not let him burn us like Jeremiah Love did 2 weeks ago at Notre Dame for 200 plus yards. So what have you seen from this running game? And obviously you had kind of a banged up offensive line a couple weeks ago. How's the health looking on the offensive line and how they can control that tempo?
Yeah, I think for Emmett Johnson, Nebraska's running back, I mean, he's not terribly explosive. He doesn't have like the breakaway stuff that Jeremiah Love. He can really, hit you for 60 yards in a flash if you don't wrap up and tackle. But, one thing that he really was great at, especially last week against Northwestern, and you just seen it kind of consistently now, he can make that first guy miss, and he's really good inside of the short area, like where it looks like there's 3 guys around him and it's going to be trouble, and he'll sneak ahead for a couple more yards. So it's kind of just hidden stuff with him, and he does a really nice job for what this offense has needed him to be. They don't have anybody that they can really trust behind him, and I think that's kind of worked out in Nebraska's favor a little bit, where they don't really have a choice. Like, we got to give it to this guy, and we got to go let him do his thing. And he's been wanting that role. He briefly entered the transfer portal this offseason, and that was, kind of a panic thing around here. So yeah, he is definitely the featured guy, I think, in the offense right now. They have good wide receivers. Their top 3 with Key and Hunter and Ja'Cory Barney are really good, and they have an opportunity in different ways to be sort of explosive, and they get them involved in different ways. But the O-line is it's a concern, for Nebraska at this point. They have been, out of the 2, it seems like they're certainly more comfortable just straight ahead run blocking. But pass pro has been a challenge. They brought in Elijah Pritchett as a tackle from Alabama, and he was not a starter to start the year. Had a lot of stuff in practice where he'd get penalties, and just like, they were doing the thing where we just can't trust you yet. Then they put him in there, and there's some penalties here and there. But he's pretty clearly, like, I think their most talented player along the offensive line. Interior has been solid. Transfer from Notre Dame, Rocco Spindler. Their center, Justin Evans, was a guard last year. And then Henry Lutovsky is a guy that they've sort of developed here. Those are their interior guys. And then right tackle has been really, really difficult. On Saturday, it'll be Turner Corcoran, who's been here for seems like 100 years now, playing guard and tackle and all sorts of different things. Gunnar Gatula was their original starting left tackle, has been banged up. He's still banged up. Don't think he'll go on Saturday. And they lost Teddy Prohaska, who has been through a myriad of injuries in his career and had another significant knee injury last week against Northwestern. So he'll be out for the year. So they're down to really two guys I think they could trust at tackle. And I say trust with, kind of air quotes. It's been challenging to protect the passer, but they've done a lot of different things to try and get Raiola on the move a little bit and just sort of protect him a little bit better, get the ball out of his hands quicker, and they'll need to do all of it on Saturday. But yeah, the O-line is it's been a point of contention around here, that's for sure.
So, got to tell you quickly about our friends over at Sleeper, #1 sports app right now, and not just for season-long fantasy. They've got live score updates. They've got a chat you can communicate with other users. Plus, the best part is the daily fantasy feature, which is just like a live pick'em. Just choose 2 to 8 players across any sport. Choose more or less, and you can win real money. When you go to make your first deposit right now, use our promo code. You see it right down there, Rams LAFB, all one word. They're going to give you a match bonus up to $100. Put in $100, you get $100 free on top of that to play with. If you only want to deposit 10, they'll match you that 10. You're starting at 20. But wait, right now, any new users automatically get a $20 free entry to play with, no deposit required. However, you can stack that bonus, take that 20, go deposit whatever you choose up to 100 with that promo code RAMSLAFB, and they'll match you that. So now you've got extra free money to go play with. So check it out today. Download the Sleeper app. Tell them the guys over at the Rams LAFB sent you. Now, let's get on to the show. Yeah, I mean, like anywhere across the country, that's obviously one of the most important aspects. And in this game, I think it will be. It's people say it for every game, but with this USC team specifically, it really comes down to their defensive line against the opposing offensive line. We saw it against Michigan 3 weeks ago, where defensive line dominated. They're able to hold the run game in check, and USC won 31-13. And then 2 weeks ago into Notre Dame, the front seven gets gashed, aren't gap sound, don't have the integrity there, and they obviously lose that game. So I think it's going to really come down to that battle, which should be really fun to watch. And you mentioned Dylan Raiola. Connor, obviously got to talk about him a little bit. What have you seen from his just development? I mean, you can see, I've seen flashes. I watched him live last year when Nebraska played here in LA. You can certainly see the ceiling, the flashes, but seems like sometimes, tries to force some things and maybe play a little hero ball. What have you seen just from his development within this offense? He seems to be a guy who is really comfortable when he's in a rhythm. I mean, what quarterback wouldn't be, but I think at times this year it's been just a little bit choppy for him. He clearly possesses the arm talent to be able to make the throws. Sometimes he will turn down layup throws that he should be making, in order to, he's a little turnover averse. I think at a certain point, there's like a line there where you can't be too careful. And sometimes I think he's too careful and he ends up taking sacks. But, I think the drive maybe of the year for Nebraska was last week when they had blown a 21-6 lead against Northwestern in the third quarter and into the fourth quarter of that game. He's got the ball. They need a long drive. They need a long touchdown drive. He completes 4 third down passes to move him down the field, and they punch it in with Emma Johnson, the touchdown at the end. So he's made the throws, and the receivers have made the plays when they've needed. It was the same thing for a go-ahead touchdown against Maryland a couple weeks earlier. So pretty relatively steady in the Cincinnati game at the very beginning of the year. They were just sort of shelling everybody in, and he would kind of take easy stuff. So he's done what he's been asked, I think, for the most part, this year. And, he's been relatively consistent. It's just a matter of, for Nebraska in this game, it'll be just about game control, right? Do you want to play it? You got to be able to play it on your terms. And so getting out to a good start is, I think, important for them. But if they're down, if Nebraska's down, and they have to pull the cord and say, hey, let it rip, then
I'd be curious to see what it looks like in that scenario, because I get the sense that he's got a little bit of gunslinger, in him as well, and we've seen that at times. So he's a fascinating case. People aren't always happy with him around here. They prefer mobile quarterbacks. Dylan is not that, but he can make some plays outside of the pocket, and make some plays down the field after that. So, I think for USC getting to the passer, not only that, but taking him down, right? Like if he gets past that first one, then that's when things can get going down the field, because those receivers are pretty solid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And USC has certainly had their struggles against the pass earlier. It seems like they've gotten better as the season's gone on, but definitely not out of the woods yet, and proving that they've been kind of a dominant shutdown defensive backfield. So, Connor, going over to the defensive side of the ball, and I don't say this with cockiness, but just statistically, this will be the best offense that Nebraska has faced, and USC being the number one offense in the Big Ten. Obviously down, as I mentioned, their two running backs for the season, essentially, with Wayman Jordan, Eli Sanders. We've seen some really good stuff from King Miller. Brian Jackson is getting back to full health. They have some freshmen there available. And obviously we know about the receivers, Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane. What's just your confidence level on this defense? And, when they played last year, it was Jay Maava's first collegiate start for the USC Trojans, and made some kind of risky throws there that he got away with.
Yep.
And since that game, he hasn't got away with those risky throws as much. So just what's your confidence level in this defense going against this really high powered offense?
Yeah, I specifically remember one in particular in that game that went right through Malcolm Hartzog's hands in the end zone. That would have been a pretty key interception in that game. So Nebraska got to take opportunities of that, when they get them on Saturday. But they do, it shows on paper as the number, I think, 2 pass defense from a yards per game perspective in the country. I don't know if they're that good. They're certainly not that talented in the defensive backfield, but they can cover. They are sticky. Their corners are pretty solid. Ceyair Wright, who well, transfer from USC, has really been a pretty good stalwart. They move him kind of into the slot, to cover there, and then Donovan Jones is more of a physical outside guy. And then Andrew Marshall is a transfer from Idaho, who they're pretty high on. And he got the task of taking on Northwestern's best receiver last year, who's, you might not think, hey, Northwestern's best receiver, what's that? Pretty good player. Yeah, pretty dang good player. So, and nearly got beat on the last play of the game, and might've got away with a little bit of a defensive holding there. But their secondary was always going to be the best part about this defense coming into the year. And I think it's proven that. They're small and inexperienced up front. And so the other part of having a good pass defense is teams have just decided, all right, well, we can get them on the ground. And so far I think they are liable. Nebraska is to give up big explosive runs. It certainly was the case with Justice Haynes against Michigan. Minnesota was just a total no-show effort for Nebraska, so they like to kind of throw that one out the window. Which I guess you have one of those every once in a while, but they executed their game plan to a T. So I think it's a pretty solid defense. The idea is for it to be more explosive and hopefully grab a couple turnovers when they put it in harm's way. And that's what we were able to do last week in the game against Northwestern. Got a key interception in that game late. So it's a good cover defense, and I just wonder how they'll be able to hold up against the run if USC wants to go that way.
Yeah, and that's what USC will need to do, even without their top backs, really establish that run, which they weren't able to do at Notre Dame 2 weeks ago. And then with Jade Maava, just a clean game, not some of those boneheaded throws that he's played really well this season overall. His 4 interceptions have been kind of not great interceptions, so if he can limit that, USC's offense, it'll be interesting to see. You mentioned Ceyair Wright, so you kind of answered it already. Love his story. Love how much he's developing and doing well at Nebraska. I think he's handled it really well with obviously the questions at USC, and kind of just said, yeah, in LA, there is a lot of distractions, which is true. And here I'm able to focus on football, and you can see what a good player he is. And he's been dynamic and dominant for you guys. You mentioned they move him mostly to the slot, which is obviously where Makai Lemon mostly plays out of. Now, Lincoln Riley will move him around at times, but do you expect Ceyair Wright to basically just kind of mirror Makai Lemon wherever he is on the field?
They have another option there in Marshall too. Like I said, he got Wildy last week, so I imagine they'll probably try and keep him there where you don't, their worst cover guy on the edge is Donovan Jones, and he's more of a, like a run stopping corner, I guess, pretty physical on the edge. So they'll try to keep him off of him would be my guess in this game. But yeah, there might be some opportunities for Ceyair Wright against Makai Lemon, which I'm sure he would really like that. He has been not only a good player, but I mean, Rhule has really talked about him from the emotional standpoint and how good of a kid he is and how much of a leader he's sort of become in this team. Nebraska's defensive coordinator, John Butler, this week, got emotional sort of when talking about his story and, just how much they really, really love having him in that locker room. So it's been almost a surprise, when Nebraska got him last year, really, really late, right before the season started, I was like, all right, what are they going to get out of this? And by the end of the year, he was really playing well, and they got a captain, this year. So he's been everything that they've asked for and more.
Yeah, it was awesome to see just his bounce, because at SC it was almost at the point where we just thought he was quitting football altogether. Right. Obviously, he was in Space Jam and did some acting there, and so kind of just we didn't really get to see him as a player, and now being like, oh dang, this dude can really ball and he's really good. So, and he almost single-handedly beat USC last year in the Coliseum with how good he played. So that will be a very enticing matchup. Obviously, Makai Lemon against Notre Dame. Notre Dame fans like to say he was shut down. He still had 4 for 78. So, I mean, I wouldn't call that a total shutdown, but definitely limited versus what he's had in weeks past with getting out of the end zone and dominance he had against Michigan and Illinois. So that will obviously be a big key on this game. So before I get you out of here, Connor, since you are in Omaha, I got to ask, what's the best Reuben sandwich in Omaha? I was there, and the Reuben sandwich is one of my favorites. It was founded in Omaha. So where's the best spot for a good Reuben out there?
It is a point of contention of where the Reuben was founded. The people at the Cottonwood Hotel in Blackstone will tell you that it was there.
That's where I went.
There, that's a great spot. Right across from that, there is, why am I blanking on that? There's a little bar that serves an excellent Reuben. Why can't I remember the name of this place right now? Man, I'm going to get killed by this from Omaha people. I'm going to lose my Omaha card. But yes, great Reuben, great steak. I saw the picture going on last night of the Dodgers steak, the Dodgers tomahawk steak at Dodger Stadium. And a lot of people were like, hey, you could just go anywhere in Nebraska and you could find something, at least that good. So no shortage of good food options, believe it or not, here. But yes, steak, meat, like Reuben sandwiches, that's going to be the alley that you want to be in.
Yeah. Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah. I went, cause we were out there visiting and looked it up, and I was like, all right, hey, I got to get a good Reuben. So I was just, Googling where's the best Reuben, and the whole story of at the Breaker Hotel, there was a poker game, and then some guy went, just whipped up this sandwich, and boom, the Reuben was born. But yeah, so I went to Cottonwood.
Barrett's, by the way,
okay.
It's like an Irish bar. It's solid.
Okay, next time I'm there, I'll check that out. Because I was definitely at the Cottonwood Hotel, fantastic. I'm sure you've been. It was a great Reuben. But I was definitely thrown aback when I go in, and it's this swanky, it's a hotel restaurant, and I'm like, this is the birthplace of the Reuben. But obviously, it's been remodeled and new ownership and stuff since then. But the sandwich was fantastic, absolutely worth it with the garlic fries. And then
the restaurant the bar across the street is Crescent Moon. So there's a lot of great places, and that Cottonwood Hotel is sneaky. I go there once a year for my anniversary and eat in the I think they call it the Prime Steakhouse, the whatever it is. It's super expensive. We go there once a year, and we're like, this is amazing, and we're going all out. So there's great food options, believe it or not, here in Omaha.
Yeah, and the outdoor pool area looked fantastic. It was a whole party going on when I was there in June. So it was
perfect time.
Omaha, underrated city. I know all the fans from LA will likely fly into Omaha and then drive over to Lincoln from there. So anyone listening, make sure to check out those places. But I was, super underrated city. So I will definitely be back and excited to be there for this game, as it's going to be a good one for sure. So Connor, thank you so much for taking the time to talk some USC Nebraska. Really do appreciate it. Where can everyone, find your work at?
Yeah. Daily 1620 The Zone. It's Omaha's sports talk. Really, probably about the only daily sports talk in Nebraska. I'm on from 10 to 2, do the midday show there. And then the Locked On podcast, if you want some daily Husker updates as well, if you're looking into any information like that around this time, might be of use to people. A lot of contract extension talk over the last couple of days for sure.
There you go. Yeah. Well, thank you, Connor. And it seems like I'm sure you've noticed on X or Twitter, whatever, there's kind of like a small like allegiance being created between USC fans and Nebraska fans, like a rivalry, but fun. It's kind of like USC and Nebraska against Oregon and Iowa. I'm like, I'm for it.
It's so nice. It's weird. Usually there's always the barbing back and forth. USC is the only program that Nebraska's played, I think, more than once that they've never beaten before. Yeah. And they've they're like kind of ships crossing in the night. They don't really see each other very much, but now they'll see each other more often. USC hasn't been here since 2007, that was a different time. Nebraska blew out all the stops for that season, ended up horribly. Bill Callahan got fired at the end of that year. And so hopefully this time as they meet, it works out a little bit differently for Nebraska's side.
Yeah, we shall see, but should be a great game. Can't wait to be at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, 6:30 local time at the beautiful Memorial Coliseum out in Lincoln, Nebraska. Connor Happer, thank you so much. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you all later, Trojan family.